Hello everyone. So probably when you heard the Christmas music you were a little thrown off by some of the chord progressions. What I wanted to do was I wanted to make something in 15 because 15 is sort of the first equal temperament after 12th tone that can give you good major and minor chords. See, I can play a little 1-4-1 progression and a 5. But the semitones are a little smaller. So it sounds a little bit different than normal. Also, if I use a secondary dominant to go to the 2 chord, then I have a different scale degree 2 than in my 5 chord. So that means that it's not a mean tone temperament. We Wish You a Merry Christmas, I sort of came up with it because I thought, okay, I'm making this video really late, so I'm wishing everyone a Happy New Year, and a New Year just happened. It took me a long time to paint these keys because of the temperature outside. When I was playing the melody, I sort of figured out that it could work on the black keys. Now, microtonalists, since they are actually exploring the pitch realm, have named a lot of the common scales, or some of the fun ones, or some of the easy ones. And 15 tone hosts a scale called porcupine. And then microtonalists, if the scale is simple, they'll just name it with the number of notes it has. So the black keys on this keyboard are porcupine 7, and the pink keys are porcupine 8. So I took the melody of We Wish You a Merry Christmas, which normally has 7 notes, so I took that, and what I did was I made all of the step sizes the same, because in porcupine, what you have is you just have adjacent notes, and these are all seconds that are in between major and minor. So microtonalists call those neutral seconds. So you can say that porcupine 7 is just a stack of 7 neutral seconds, and porcupine 8 is just a stack of 8 neutral seconds, except one wraps around so that you get a small step and 7 large steps. So here's the melody in porcupine 8. So you notice that the leading tone is a lot lower. When we go T-Do at the end, it doesn't quite sound like a leading tone. So that sort of contributes to how harmonic it sounds. Then in terms of the harmony, what I did was I harmonized it with secondary dominants, just like in the real song. But what happens is there's a point where the 15-tone chords get so flat that they're off by a 15-tone step in the last secondary dominant progression. So if we have the 1 chord, 4 chord, 5-5, but now the 5 chord is 1 step lower than it should be because of what we talked about earlier, right? Because if I had this chord here, and I just went to the 5 chord, I would want my root to go down a 15-tone step, and I want my third to go down 2 15-tone steps. So that would be... But this chord is not the same as this chord, which is what I get when I cycle through secondary dominants to here. So that's actually the chord I want to be going back to here. So it's just off a little bit, and that's what gives you that sense of harmonic flavor. So we cycle through secondary dominants, 5-5, 5, but it's a step lower. Then this is acts as our 5 of 2. But instead of choosing to go to the 2 that actually has the same 5th in it, I choose to go to the 1 that is diatonic or harmonizes with our porcupine melody. So that means that I actually have to jump to here. So there's this weird change where it doesn't exactly go to the right chord. Then I move to 2, 5, 1. But here's what happens. If this is, fa, so, do, you'd expect do to be there, but it's a little bit higher, right? So what happens is we're going 2, 5, and then that 5 chord is actually going it's going sort of a quarter step higher than it should. And that's why the resolution sounds so funky, because all of the 5-1 resolutions occur with that 5 chord that's a 15-tone step lower than it should be. I changed this at the end of the video. At the very end, the resolution actually goes to the correct chord, which means that the final chord is a half step lower than the key the song has been in the entire time. So I'll play that melody for you. Notice that in this melody, by the way, I'm playing all the black keys and then one white key. And I also have 2 different so's. And so this is when, so that when I have my main major chord, my 1 chord, that I can go so, do, because as I said, the 5 that I'm using to go 5-1 is a 15-tone step lower. So that means that it uses this so instead. So here, listen to the difference in the melody. I go 1 note lower there, and on the regular piano, that's the same note as my first so, but here it's different. So that is where our half step is in Porcupine 8. So you can say that the melody I'm using is diatonic in Porcupine 8, but the chords aren't, because I wanted to keep the secondary dominants that are in the regular chord progression with a little bit of a twist that I've explained. So let me play this with the proper resolution at the end. Lower so, right? Lower so again. You hear that this only goes up a half step, instead of to our, that is sort of the main key. So yeah, those are some of the techniques I use to bring about Zen harmonic things. Some things you should know about 15-tone before we go. 15 tones half step is pretty close. If you divide the octave into 15 parts, an octave is 1200 cents. 1200 divided by 15 is 80 cents. Our main 12-tone semitone is 100. So 80 and 100 are pretty close. Basically, the semitone functions very similarly in 15-tone. But 15-tone is extremely Zen harmonic because it doesn't have a whole tone. If I try to just play a major scale in 15-tone equal temperament, you can hear that my re is too sharp. It's really more like a very small minor third. Since you have to pick whole tones in 15-tone equal temperament, when you play the major scale, it requires a choice with the major seconds. You can either have a high one or a low one. So here is a major scale with the high major seconds. Here it is with the low major seconds. We would use the low re, or low scale degree 2, for the 2 minor chord. And we would use the higher re in our 5 chord, which is related by 5th to the 1 chord. And then when I go to the 4 there, I'm using the low scale degree 6, not the high one. So there you have it. That's just some 15-tone music theory. If you want to know about the keyboard, what I did was in Ball State Studios, they threw away a Korg keyboard. And I know that Korg is a really friendly brand, so I was able to get it out of the trash and mix it with a different Korg model so that I have excess white and black keys to rearrange. So now that they're all painted pink, they all are the same color, and I can rearrange them in any format I like. So there are different layouts here. Of course, this has 7 black keys and 8 white keys, but if you wanted to do, say, 9-tone equal temperament, you would have 5 white keys and 4 black keys. Each equal temperament has a few different layouts that could work pretty well. So that's why I have this layout. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if you want to know more about 15-tone equal temperament, you should investigate Easley Blackwood's compositions. When Easley Blackwood went through all of the equal temperaments as part of a research project, he discovered that 15, 19, and 21 were some of his favorites. He wrote a fanfare in 19, he wrote with a 15-tone guitar, and he also wrote 4 suites and 21 equal in his microtonal compositions. He liked those tunings because they could make major and minor chords. I hope your new year is wonderful, and I hope you fulfill your resolutions. See you later.